Ladies and gentlemen, you're tuned in to the second AFTERBUZZ TV after show for Lady Dynamite. Today we're covering episodes 3 and 4, so stay tuned.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
All right. You guys know why I picked this one?
Why, Jeff?
Episode 3 was all about race. And I'm a little worried. Do you guys think we're even allowed to talk about episode 3 being an all-Caucasian panel?
Skip this one.
I know.
We have to keep it light.
Hey, we're white. Keep it light.
Keep it light, right? I was watching this the whole time thinking like, oh my gosh, are 4 white people even allowed to? But you know what? Because Maria did it, and because the whole episode is kind of about whether or not you're allowed to, I feel like we're fine, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to say yes.
We're going to do it either way, so.
I'm gonna be the cantankerous this whole episode and argue. No, we should not. Is my mic on? Are you gonna be the
I
Rachel
think
Dozel?
you're good. I'm hearing you, so
Okay.
we're good. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for tuning in again. This is the AFTERBUZZ TV after show for Lady Dynamite. In case you guys don't remember, I'm Jeff Graham. I'm leading the panel this season. You guys can find me on Twitter at Jeffrey C. Graham. Thanks for tuning in once again.
I am Tamra Brown. You can find me on Twitter at BrownTamra or on Instagram at Tamra_blue or on Snapchat at Hey Tamra, because I can't just have an even playing field with all easy handles that are easy to remember.
That's fine. I'm Kelsey Hightower, and I'm keeping it simple. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Kels Hightower.
I'm very simple. I'm Lisa Mason Lee, and you can find me everywhere at Lisa Mason Lee.
So, we're in it. We're 4 episodes in now. I want to get your guys' overall thoughts just about the show. Not necessarily specifics, but just kind of where we're going, how we felt about these 2 episodes in general.
I feel like the pacing is a little bit slower, which I'm enjoying. Or maybe it's just the fact that like we're getting used to the cut betweens, but they weren't changing times as often. So it was it seemed a little bit more linear and easier to follow, a little bit slower paced.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I like that a lot.
said.
Yeah, I felt a lot better about these episodes than I did the very first episode, which I thought was like all over the place. But we're getting the pattern, and we're kind of seeing what she's doing, and we're kind of getting used to those cuts and stuff like that. So I'm excited. I really loved these last 2 episodes.
Well said.
Yeah.
Any thoughts, Lisa, on these 2 in general that hasn't been said yet, or?
Yeah, I just think they're developing nicely, and they're really fun, and the writing is getting a little more raunchy and totally interesting.
Definitely
So,
raunchier. Especially, I'll be excited to talk about this Brandon Routh episode and some of those jokes, but I was laughing, so that's all that counts, right?
Yep.
So yeah, this first episode, Kelsey, last week you kind of predicted that each of these episodes was going to kind of tackle a theme or an idea.
Yes.
And you definitely predicted correctly, at least so far.
Good job.
Yeah,
Thanks.
good job. So smart.
I love that part of it. And I was
Yeah.
just kind of like, my secret was like, I just hope they keep doing that. And they are,
It
which
is
I love.
good. It's
Yes.
good because the show is so cerebral and crazy and brainy that it feels like at least addressing a topic is what's going to keep it grounded. It's very South Park, which makes sense because Pam Brady's on the team. That's kind of how that show handles their episodes. So this episode 3...
Kyle McCulloch wrote the 3rd episode, and he was a South Park writer too.
Oh, was he? That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Well, episode 3, we're talking about race. This was a very, very interesting, complex meditation on kind of like white privilege and like the white existential angst that people feel when they have to deal with racial issues, especially in TV.
Especially in TV and especially in comedy a lot, because there's this constant debate between things should be off limits. You should be able to say anything that you want versus no, you need to be sensitive to something that somebody doesn't want to hear. And I'm hearing that debate is like constantly in my Facebook feed, and it's always the crowd that's anti-PC versus the one that's like sympathetic to all points of view, which is the way that I believe it should be. But like, this is such a topical, like, this episode was so relatable to me. Yeah.
What do you guys think on you guys like comedy. Do you think there is a line in comedy? What do you think, should there be rules? What are you guys' thoughts on that?
I think that's what comedy is for, is to break the rules. I think that's kind of an outlet to look at what we do or what's wrong with our society or what we're not including, and kind of talk about that and break the rules for that.
Right.
So, and I think that's what she's doing. So if there's like a problem, she's like addressing it head first.
Yeah. Yeah, what I liked was I feel like what seems true about comedy is like anything can be said, just be prepared.
If it's done the right way.
If it's done the right way.
True.
And of course, this show is doing it in such an intelligent way. And I feel like, if you're a comedian, nothing's off limits. Just be prepared to handle whatever.
My personal opinion on the matter is that because every single comedian that I know that's just like, everybody, nothing's off limits, you say what you want, they say that until somebody says the buzzword that is personally affects you.
Yeah.
Like everybody's like, no, nothing's off limits.
Right.
Everybody say whatever they should say until the thing that strikes a chord with your personal history. So that being said, my opinion is you need to be sensitive to when somebody tells you that something is offensive to them.
Right. Absolutely. On that note, let's talk about this episode, White Trash.
Diving in.
Just got there was like a tumbleweed that blew by as I was
know.
going on that little.
It's all right. So Gabriel's back, which is so much fun.
That is fun. I like him.
I like him too. This guy, Craig David's a really good actor. He was on this show, The Messengers. He's worked. I'd love to see him more because I feel like he's a smart actor. Did you guys pick up on that? Like, I feel like playing a scene like this where, like, because he kind of was joking about race, but then pulling it back and being like, no, I'm kidding. But am I kidding? Like, I feel like he played that really. What did you guys think of this whole opening?
Yeah, that was interesting how they brought him in for the intro. She bumps into him. He's the pizza delivery guy.
Yeah.
He's the Uber driver. He's at doggy daycare at the pool. And then he twists the whole thing around and makes her feel like she's a racist.
I know. This was so funny because I couldn't even read if he was serious or kidding.
Right.
And we've all been in that position before where we don't necessarily know. So this was a really strong cold open. And to me, the job of a cold open in a comedy is either to stand completely alone and work as its own little sketch, or to really effectively introduce the themes of the episode. And I thought this cold open really did a good job of letting us know we're diving head on into some racial issues here. So then we're back. Again, right in the manager's office.
And it's not even like racial issues. It's like reaction to racial issues is what is more so like what it's about. Like how to handle reaction.
Yeah, just like how to even begin to navigate that topic in the world of comedy.
Yeah.
So we go right into Bruce's office, and he can tell right away that something's up. And we kind of start to feel Maria's existential kind of white guilt over who she is, what she's doing. And he suggests this group. It's a racial anxiety support group called LA Pure, which is People United for Racial Equality. And the best thing is we dive into this group and everyone's white, which was just so funny. So we go, and there's this we're getting ahead, but this might have been my favorite joke. She's talking about this new show, because Bruce is introducing this show. It's called White Trash. It's this multicam sitcom about two African-American actors who are garbage people. And Maria brings this up in the meeting, and they say, we don't call them garbage people anymore. Which was so funny. Maria goes, what do you mean? And he goes, we just don't call them anymore. She goes, did we ever call them that? And she goes, well, just by being white, you're essentially calling them that. So we're kind of, South Park addressed this idea last season, and it's the idea of like the political correctness, the social justice warriors. What do we do? And so this is kind of the frame that we're set. And then we immediately dive into the past, and we see her in a similar group, and they're talking about this commercial, and we see this Rachel Dolezal character. There she is. What did you guys think of this? How did you guys react?
I was confused because I was just like, so the leader of the group is now in blackface, which is about the most racially insensitive thing to do. I was confused what was happening.
Right. Well, I mean, the joke is because Rachel Dolezal was the head of a black association. Now she's the head of a white one. It's just the play on it. It's just genius.
So genius. That made me laugh so hard.
Wait, was that the real? No, that wasn't the real Rachel Dolezal playing.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It looked just like her, though.
Okay,
Whoever they found, I was very impressed. But she's in this meeting, and she's talking about she has this opportunity for this superstore, this big commercial for a superstore called Checklist. And our producer, Mark, is in the booth. I think he's queuing up the commercial. This is, of course, a callback to her Target commercials. Had you guys seen these before?
Yeah.
Yes, loved them.
So I think while Mark is working on that, this is another example of how I love so much this... Oh, perfect. I think we're ready to go. If you want to cue that commercial, Mark, we're ready to go.
I'm doing a bit of light calisthenics to practice for the big Target 2-day sale next Friday morning. Hot toys, flat TVs, hot, flat. That's how you win Christmas. Boom, boom, boom. Looking good, Sid. Huh?
Starts Friday, November 27th at 5 a.m.
Okay, as fans of Maria Bamford, how do you guys personally feel about this commercial? Do you guys think she sold out?
No.
Not at all. What do you guys think? Do you
It's
think-
Target. She probably got paid a ton.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's still comedy. Like, it's still
She
her.
still got to be herself.
Yeah,
It's
I don't think
comedy,
she sold
it's
out.
exposure, and there's not a single comedian that would not take a
Target deal.
Or any, comedians are actors too. So
Right.
it's like if somebody's going to offer you a spot, you're going to take it.
The funny thing is, in retrospect, I wonder how she feels about that commercial. Because it seemed like she wanted to take it back. She almost, in the same way that, authors who maybe have a decision they've regretted will try to take that back by bringing it back into their art. Do you guys feel like she might have been doing that with this episode? How did you guys feel about this whole checklist commercial thing and everyone's calling her a sellout? How did you guys interpret this?
Well, how old is the commercial, first of all?
2010. 6 years old.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
Didn't realize it was that old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and I think in the show, she was talking about how, like, when she was actually on set, she did it and she was so excited. And then she looked to Bruce and she was like, I did great, And he was like, I don't know about that. So I think maybe she was excited about it. I mean, I don't know, but I could anticipate that she was kind of excited about doing the commercial, but maybe she got some feedback or pushback from other people, like other comedians or maybe her manager or somebody else, that maybe gave her a different opinion about it. I don't know.
No, that's a great point. It could be that even though deep down she knew it was the right move for her career,
Right.
other people projected insecurity onto her. And that seemed to be what the big theme of this episode was,
Yes.
Or the series.
Oh,
as a
really?
whole.
The series, right? That's kind of what I started to notice. There is a format to this show, right? We're finally figuring out. It kind of seems like this episode is a fictionalized Maria Bamford dealing with her demons a little bit. And it seems like these three timelines kind of operate in specific ways, right? So, flashback Maria, we kind of see how these insecurities showed up in the first place. Duluth Maria, we see her trying to deal with them and amidst her breakdown. And present Maria is just trying to deal with them and figure out how her new version is going to handle them. So,
Well said.
this commercial's hilarious. We find out that she's getting paid $150,000 to do the campaign. And we also see... So we're in Karen's office.
One interesting point, real quick. Sorry.
No, please.
Maria Bamford is in interviews and stuff. She's weirdly known for not being at all shy about talking about money. Like, she recently did an interview where she was interviewing another comedian. I think it was Byron Bowers and. No, I'm sorry, it was Baron Vaughn. Both black comics, very funny. So is that racially insensitive, what I just said? I don't know.
I think you need to go.
But anyway, she in the interview was like, oh, so what did you get paid for this? And he's like uncomfortable, and she tells exactly what she made in the last year and she very honestly says what she made in the last year and stuff like that. Like, she's weirdly open
Interesting.
about what she gets paid for things.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, that was funny because it definitely played into this episode. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
So we see her in Karen's office, and Karen's like, you did so good in this commercial. We're going to make this a huge thing. Cradle the ball, stroke the shaft. This was wild. I will say, this is the first moment in the series where I personally felt like the comedy was played a little far. I didn't read this scene maybe quite. How did you guys feel about this whole cradle the ball, stroke the shaft serenade that occurred in the office?
But not you, Bruce.
I know.
I personally love the song.
You loved it?
Yeah.
It's very catchy. I'll give it that.
Yeah.
It did take it, a huge step forward from anything else we had seen. It'd been very, I don't know, it's very raunchy, I guess. So
I think of course the show isn't really playing in any kind of conception of true reality, but I think I was brought a little bit out of the world of Maria's career. But I mean, Karen is crazy.
Yeah, because Karen Grisham is the aggressive, like, she's balls out. So like, I feel like she would sing that's her morning mantra.
Right.
Cradle the ball, stroke the shaft.
Totally.
So because of the fact that she was the one that initiated it, like, I didn't feel like it was overtook it in a wrong direction or anything like that. I don't know.
It is interesting. This is the first clip that Netflix released of the show, and I think people were like, oh my gosh, what?
what is this show?
Yeah. Either way, it's hilarious because Maria's like, yeah, singing along. She's like, well, I just want to be a good person. And Karen says, you're going to be so effing rich that even if you're a bad person, you can just tell them to F right off. So this is really clearly starting to initiate Maria's breakdown. Do you guys think Karen might have been part of the cause of Maria's breakdown here? I kind of feel like Karen specifically might be a catalyst in what drove Maria back to Duluth.
I could see that because she's such a powerhouse, and being a agent, you have to really like push, and she's a tough woman. And if Maria is just going along like being a people pleaser, she's gonna fall into this kind of, like, okay, I'll do whatever you want me to do. I'm the little lamb, and then she just gets pushed too far.
Right.
Well, what about Bruce? I mean, he's crying about his career a little bit.
Yeah.
I said Brit. Bit, and he's forcing Maria into taking jobs, because he needs the money.
And he's on Karen's team. He's like, we have to be in good standing with Karen. Like, you can't get fired from her. Like, we can't let her drop you from, being your talent manager, agent.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. We're finally seeing the stage of what probably drove Maria to kind of have a breakdown, and it makes sense. You know what? Comics tend to be insecure people. She's a people pleaser, and if everyone's forcing you to adopt some kind of voice, it can really kind of rip your brain apart.
Yeah.
Either way, we jump back into the present, and we're on this set for this multicam white trash. And this is a show where so Maria Bamford and, is it Mira
Sorvino?
Yeah, Mira Sorvino, thank you. Are these like neighbors, and this whole scene just plays so uncomfortably, and we don't know what to do here. What did you guys think of this show, White Trash, when we first hop on set? So funny, right? It just
so ridiculously campy. Like,
know.
there's not even it's not even this show likes to draw parallels, but like it's not. I mean, I wonder if she had a show in mind that this was supposed to be.
It feels like an ABC Family freeform multicam.
Is she speaking? Yeah, like I'm trying to think of like what show is unabashedly horrible like that. Like I don't, but it's just, to me, it wasn't recognizable that this was supposed to be any specific show.
Yeah, not necessarily.
I was just happy to see the Lucas brothers. They're very funny.
So funny. I think my first encounter with them was 22 Jump Street. I don't know if you guys had seen them before. But they're so funny. It's such a, like Maria, it feels like such a singular voice.
Yeah.
And they're really fun to watch. Anyway, so they're both so nervous talking to Maria, and Mara Sorvino's character are so nervous talking to these guys, and it's just funny because you can feel their dread of like, how do we handle this? What are the rules? We're comedians. We're on this show called White Trash, like, and they're just along for the ride, which I loved. These actors like, this is a job, and they're totally comfortable with it. So it's Maria who's projecting the discomfort on all of this. Either way, we get a preview of this show, and then we jump back, and this was really interesting to me. I'm really interested to get your guys' thoughts on this. We're in the Duluth timeline, and we see Maria's dad in his cobbler shop. This was crazy. You reacted right away, Tamra. How did you feel about this whole flashback?
Well, first of all, the cobbler shop's name was Footsie's, which is hilarious because it's a bar in East LA, like kind of near where Maria lives. So I wondered if she was always like, oh, Footsie's would be a great name for this fake cobbler shop.
Totally.
But so yeah, that was funny. But then this kid that was awful,
terrible kid.
Yeah. And then the awful parents, I guess it was like presenting this like she was raised with because in that scene, like the parents were once the boys' parents came in wheelchairs, and then Maria's parents kind of like, oh, we don't know how to, we're tiptoeing around the obvious of that these two people are in wheelchairs, like the same sort of uncomfortableness. So I was thinking, like, is she trying to say that like she was raised with a like not knowing how to approach touchy subjects? Is that what it was saying?
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's a really, I hadn't thought of that, but maybe it was just, I grew up in the Midwest. I don't know where are you guys all from? This is interesting.
Midwest. I'm from Indiana.
Indiana.
I'm from Oklahoma.
Do you guys feel like there was a sense of repressed, don't address the elephant in the room conditioning growing up in the Midwest a little bit?
Sometimes, yeah, definitely.
I definitely, for me. Not for you as much. For me, I grew up in like a very white picket fence town. My parents are pretty conservative.
That's the thing, is like I was surrounded by, white people, you know, and so you don't really get what you get in LA, where there's a whole mix of people and you get to have those interactions and talk about things, where are you from, like all that sort of stuff. It's just like, well, I'm from Oklahoma, small town.
Right.
Yeah,
You're
white
so
people. So, yeah, it's like you never really get, probably like Maria doesn't really get to
doesn't have the experience.
that interaction. Yeah, and then you come across somebody who's like in a wheelchair and you're like, you don't know, you don't have your feet. And they're like, we have our feet.
Right.
And it was so interesting. They really didn't know how to handle it because these were legitimately terrible people. It kind of was a return to the theme we saw where her boyfriend in episode 2, the guy she's kind of seeing, this bisexual meth addict.
Right.
He's not, you know what? She's trying to be sensitive because he's a bisexual meth addict, but he's really just a douchebag.
Really awful. Yeah,
he's just an
you're
awful
right.
person. So that's kind of, maybe this is something we'll see kind of return over and over again because it's a funny thing to present to someone with rampant anxiety. Because it's like, how do you, for someone who's obsessed with people pleasing, it's like, it's a funny trope to introduce.
It's everything. It's like, for somebody with rampant anxiety, these are all such nuanced. To worry about accidentally saying the wrong thing to somebody in a wheelchair is something that everybody to a certain degree can knows what that feels like. But when you're riddled with anxiety, that's just like off the charts, you know. So like the things that each of these episodes are tackling are perfect.
It's perfect
to sort of let the viewer sympathize with Maria's plight.
Yeah, definitely. So then we jump back into the present, and we're back on the set of White Trash, and Maria, in an attempt to be a hero and rescue these guys from this, white oppression, helps recreate the show and abolish offensive stereotypes. So, of course, we see these characters once again, and there's just these two blonde bimbo slut
Terribly
girls.
it goes from being incredibly racist to incredibly sexist.
Yes.
And I love that it turns to the whole male production staff, and they're like, "Oh, that was so good, right on."
Yeah.
This is pretty brilliant. I thought. What did you guys think of this? Being ladies on our panel.
Well, not only did everybody like it, but it got completely picked up for like a full season. Yeah.
Yeah, it was almost this thing. This was so smart because it's like, you know what? If race isn't working, we know at the end of the day, always sex will sell. It's like, no matter what's happening on the show, just get some two blonde bimbo girls and we're going to have something going.
Yeah, somebody will watch.
Somebody will watch, yeah. This is so funny. And I love that the show's still called White Trash. You know what I mean?
And it makes sense.
Yes, it makes sense both ways. That's what blew my mind is like White Trash both ways works.
So smart.
So offensive.
So funny. Were you guys surprised by this? This twist?
The turn.
Yeah.
I was not expecting them to come back and have a whole different show and for it to actually work. It was very surprising and funny at the same time.
Yeah.
That's the other thing about the show. It's so hard to predict, at least from my standpoint. I'm like, it's just so unpredictable. That's why it's so fun.
Yeah. This was such a good turn. I didn't see it coming.
And the fact that it's not even ever called out that it went from being racist to sexist. Like the problem that the Lucas brothers have with it now is that now they don't have lines.
I know.
Like they don't have as much screen time. So it's like, nobody's calling them sexist. It's
how smart to not address that. You know what I mean? We're gonna make this about race. The sexist issues in Hollywood are so rampant, it doesn't even get addressed.
Yeah.
No.
So funny. And I love this too. Maria brings it up and she's like, I was trying to help you guys. Like, well, now we don't have any lines. And she's like, well, I didn't want you guys to get misrepresented. And here's what they say. They go, we don't want to represent anything. We're comedians. We're just trying to be funny. And they're like, we sold us out. And she's like, no, I was trying to unsell you guys out. This is just so smart. I love this. And it's true. I feel like this was the theme of the episode. We're comedians. We're just trying to be funny. There's something about comedy, and this is what you're bringing up at the beginning, Tamra, where people expect you to be of like a political voice. They expect you to be a scholar. They expect you to be, if you have a TV show, people think that should be a college class. And comedians aren't necessarily trying to make a statement. They're trying to make people laugh. I felt like, to me, that was the theme of this episode.
Or to say their own truth.
Or to say their truth. You know what I mean? Like, the point of comedy is to, take a perspective on the world and, talk about universal truths in your own way. And we'll talk about this with the second episode. But that's not going to be everyone's truth. And you know what? At the end of the day, people are just trying to laugh.
Yeah.
Which this episode certainly made me laugh. So John Ridley shows up.
Oh, man.
This was so great.
That was great. Not expecting that one at all.
At all, right? So I love that he did this, by the way.
Yes. Yeah. Very cool of him.
So cool of him. And, I love when we first see his name. His Cryon says, Chiron says, John Ridley, screenwriter, 12 Years a Slave. Yeah. He goes back later in the episode. It's John Ridley, story editor, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yeah.
Such a wonderfully self-deprecating line. And he kind of goes on this rant. And he says, you know what, Maria, I don't think what you're trying to do is malicious. It's just recklessly ignorant.
Yeah.
And eventually he goes, you know what, you're fine, and you tried. That's where we leave it. And then we finally get this whole other meta-layered thing where we're talking to Mara Sorvino, and she has all these layers, and then she flies away in this flying car. How did you guys interpret this whole out of the episode?
This was wild.
Just her acting was so layered.
I know.
And just so out of control. And it was like she was almost a superhuman actor that just jets off into
What a
the sky.
performance.
Yes, a huge performance. And kind of at the end, she was like, I love her, right before she flew away into the sky, she was like, who's to say what is real, Maria?
I know.
And it's just like, and I feel like that might be a great question for Maria that she's like asking herself too, you know, like what is real, like, you know, if you're white, keep it light, you know, all that kind of stuff. Like I feel like a whole theme of that is kind of like, what am I projecting and what is actually real, sort of thing.
And what's being projected on me? What am I interpreting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And of course, it's a meditation on the show, right? Are we seeing Maria? Are we seeing Maria's character? Are we seeing Maria's thoughts? The show is just so cerebral, but also so in your face, and it's just great.
Yeah.
Yes.
Any last thoughts? Anything I didn't address on this episode that you guys want to talk about before we move on to episode 4?
I don't know. I was debating on waiting until the very end for our predictions, but I do want to kind of point out with when she was in Duluth, it kind of picked up where we left off last time. So she's sitting there and she was saying, she's not as far ahead in her recovery as she thought she was, which is kind of where we left her on the stage when she collapsed. So I'm wondering if we're going to keep seeing that with Duluth, if it's just going to kind of be like a timeline. So I just noticed that in this episode, it's just she's sitting at the table in the kitchen and she's just like very bummed because she thought she was further in her recovery than she wasn't. And then it's like we picked up with that story with her father. So that was one little thing that I noticed.
So the question you're asking is, are we going to see progression of her within the Duluth storyline or not?
Yes, kind of
thing.
if that's going to be its own timeline, like overarch throughout the whole series.
It might be, because in episode 4 we did maybe see some progress a little bit. That's a very interesting question. I'll be interested to see.
I know.
Do we want to do favorite lines from this episode before we move on to episode 4?
Sure.
All right, I'm going to have to stick with, I already said it, but the line of Karen saying, you're going to be so effing rich, even if you're a bad person, you can tell them to F right off. Because that's just torture for someone like Maria.
That's good.
After she says, if you're white, keep it light, they've already been burdened enough with our shenanigans. I love that.
Yep.
And
That's
then,
pretty good.
and then also Maria's dad, once the kid, he kind of like gets some confidence in talking to the kid. He says something like, my giant served in the Navy dick.
Yeah, this is awesome. Oh my gosh, that was really fun. That felt very justified for him to come out swinging with that line. It's great.
Yep.
Awesome.
Okay, this is very me, so I love this. I am only here for the craft service and the camaraderie.
Awesome.
I like when Maria said, all my shopping molecules are vibrating.
Yes.
This commercial was great.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, well we did it. I don't think we said anything we're not going to be on Gawker, hopefully.
I hope not.
No.
This-
We kept it light.
Sorry, not sorry. Sorry, we're white.
We did good, kids. We did good.
I know. All right, so episode 4, Jack and Diane. Let's talk about thoughts and reactions to this episode. I can start if you guys want. I thought Brandon Routh was awesome.
Yeah.
I haven't seen him much. I saw his Superman, and I thought it was fine. But he can do comedy, and I don't feel like this isn't your standard multicam. Like a show like this demands, I think, really strong comedic chops to kind of be along for the ride. And I thought he really handled it well.
So what's he from?
So he was Superman in 2003.
Oh,
2003.
yeah.
He was Superman Returns. Was that the one?
I am not up to date with those.
And that's what I remember him for. Or Man of Steel, I think is what it was called.
Oh, yes.
And I haven't really seen him, but it's interesting because he kind of got burned. And he had, he got replaced by Henry Cavill, and we haven't really, I haven't seen Brandon Routh much, but I thought he was excellent as this guest star. I think I've always kind of thought of him as like a standard, generic, good-looking actor guy who like plays good-looking actor guy roles, which he kind of played in this with a very nuanced twist, I thought.
Yeah.
What did you guys think of the episode as a whole? Anything?
So relatable.
Yeah.
The work, without jumping ahead, but like her in her cubicle at the data entry job, and like the funny guy in the office, and then everyone's like, let's hear, so we heard that you're a comedian, and she's like, it's not. She even says in her stand-up, she does a bit in her old stand-up special about how when they say you just say something funny, and she's like, that's not how it works, it's not gonna translate.
I'm not a monkey.
Yeah. And it's just oh god, but not even in that office scene. Like there were, I mean, I'll have to think about it, but there's so many points throughout the episode where it was kind of civilian comedy versus comedian comedy. I mean the C word, and like that whole thing of him not ever understanding when it's ironically funny to use cunt, and like not ever, like he just doesn't get it. And it was just kind of like, a lot of times it's like that with my boyfriend. Like he doesn't.
Is he not a comic?
Does he not know when to say the word?
My gosh.
He doesn't know. Well, like a lot of times, like he doesn't know when I'm joking or not joking or something like that. It's just very relatable.
Yeah, awesome.
Well, British interpret that word differently.
Yeah, they're fine. They throw that word around like it's the word tree. Like they just use that.
Really?
Yeah, I had some British friends who would call me that all the time, and I'd be like, whoa.
Right.
Thoughts on the episode, guys?
For me, I just liked hearing her, like she talked about her voice a lot. She did the Diane voice, and I just loved getting to see her voices, because she did that, and then she did the cartoon, and so we just got to see like a range of her, which I feel like we've like touched on the past episodes, but we haven't really got to see. So I really like that.
And this is kind of your first
it.
exposure to Maria Bamford, right?
Yes.
So you haven't really seen the voices. So.
No, I've seen the Target commercials and like a few things here and there, but like
it's fun to have someone on the panel who this is kind of their first.
I know.
I think it's good.
I'm excited. I love it.
I really liked seeing her introvert extrovert kind of fighting each other. And it's interesting.
And Diane yelling, extrovert!
Yeah, like that's that other side of her that's trying to hide that introvert, that shy girl inside of her that doesn't know how to get along with people at a party. And I know a lot of people can relate to that. When you're going to a party and you're nervous to talk to people, then you become this super version of yourself. And that's who Diane is, and it's excellent.
Gosh, so funny.
Love
She says,
Diane.
I'm terrible at parties, which I loved. So we're at this party. She calls herself Diane Winterbottom Monte, which I thought was just. I wonder how many times
It just kept on going, right?
they kept adding
naming.
that. What a fun! This would be a fun episode to be in that writer's room.
Yeah.
I was thinking so many opportunities to like dive into that persona. So many great lines.
Yeah. And Jack Tripper is his name. Again, just a little wink to anyone that loves old TV references.
Oh my gosh.
Which is?
Jack Tripper was the on Three's Company. That was now I'm blanking on the actor's name. Who played Jack Tripper on Three's Company?
John Ritter?
John Ritter!
Yeah.
Thank you, Monica. So funny. And I just love, this is such a fun version of Maria. This might be my favorite voice that she does. And she kind of nails it. You think for someone who's so crippled by social anxiety to just so immediately enter this like Kennedy, like East Coast, like she's great.
Yeah.
She's so good at this role. It's also interesting because we kind of learn about Bruce. We learn that like he's in a struggling marriage. What did you guys think of this whole Bruce thing?
Well, last episode and this episode, it's just like they just keep pounding Bruce, and like he's just this poor beaten up.
I know.
Like how every person in his life just beats him up emotionally.
You just want to cheer for him after a while. It's just like, come on, Bruce, you can do it. Pick yourself up.
Speaking of Mitchell Hurwitz, I kind of get Tobias Funke with him. Do you guys sense as Arrested Development? Do you guys like Arrested Development?
Yeah.
He seems a little Tobias to me in the way that he's like probably gay, right? Or maybe not. I don't know, but he talks about this like male frat house he's living in. We'll get to that, but it just kind of seems like in the same way, right? In the same way, he's kind of this analytical guy who's maybe got one foot in the closet still. It just kind of is giving me Tobias a little bit. I don't know if you guys saw that, but anyway, so this conflict, the central conflict this episode is introduced, and it's kind of a conventional sitcom plot, right? Where Maria is attracted to this guy, and she knows she can win him over by being this Maria Winterbottom Monte character, but she tries to come out and be like, no, that's not really me. She goes, I actually really enjoy gas station tuna fish sandwiches. And that was such a funny way to kind of try to come out of the closet of who she really is.
Yeah.
But no one gets it. And this is such a smart twist. they think that Maria is a stand-up comic. Diane Winterbottom Monte.
Right.
And her character is the actual Maria Bamford.
Yes.
What a smart twist. And it's just so funny because it's playing into her neediness, you know what I mean, and her insecurities.
And these episodes, we both of these, we saw her do stand up for the first time. When in the first episode, Patton's like, "Don't do stand up in it." So like it's slowly working its way in.
But what I love is it's not the conventional stand up thing.
Yeah.
We still haven't really seen Maria do stand up. It's not like it's Louis or Seinfeld where we just see him on stage.
Yeah.
They're using it still as a way to highlight specific components of her character, which is awesome. All right, I might as well just say it now. I think my favorite joke happened here. Dagmar, Maria. So again, we have this with the same structure, the format where it's Maria cold open, Bruce, and then her with her friends. And she's talking about it, and she's like, I'm going to come out and tell you guys what's happening. I just have this other character that's happening, and I can't get out of it. And the girls are understanding, like, you know what? No one's themselves in the first 6 years of dating. That was a great line.
I love that line, yes.
It's so true, right?
And then she says, "That's science. That's proven."
Right.
And then Dagmar says, because she's talking about, oh man, something with a V. Oh, it was the voice. She goes, I just have this voice. And Dagmar says, well, he definitely likes something about you that starts with a V. Your pussy. Probably my favorite line of the episode.
Yep.
But what's funny is the friends are kind of supportive. They're understanding. Do you guys get this? Do you feel like this is something that's pretty universally true, that you're a different version of yourself when you first start dating someone?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, you're putting on a show. You're,
your best self.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're all dressed up. You do your hair. You do your makeup. You look great.
Do you feel like you go the full Tamra Brown right from the start? You didn't react right away, so...
No, I think I'm myself when I first start dating somebody, but I think in a party situation, I am very much different. Like, that's when I'm like trying to be pleasant and upbeat and not my normal low energy self that just wants to like, hey,
do tennis as much as I do.
Yeah, like I can, in talking to new people, I can totally relate to the like being the heightened version of yourself.
Facade.
But yeah, the facade. But
especially, we're all in the industry. Yeah. It's necessary, right? Like, you're meeting people, and like, you've got to project a version of yourself that's not necessarily who you are.
And I do like by the end of the episode, I know I'm jumping ahead, but how she's so exhausted. She's just like, I can't do the voice anymore. And maybe that's kind of like how we are when we're just like, I can't put on a show anymore. Like, it's too much. So
it's relatable. This was to me the most, probably for me, relatable episode so far.
Very
just
true.
like, everyone can relate to like the going to a party, meeting people, and just kind of like having to be on. Her version of on is just so funny. So then we jump into the past and we meet this character, Karen Grisha, who's friends with Susan, and she's a real estate agent.
Oh, is it Grisha? It's not the exact same name?
I thought it was Grisham,
Okay.
but then later when we're in her office, I think it's Grisha. Or unless it was just misspelled on the wall. It's hard for me to sometimes know. Yeah. Either way, we're seeing her on this show she's doing a voice for. She goes, it's two very, reasonable topics, Bill Cosby and SeaWorld. Such a funny joke. And she goes in and she does this voice. And, gosh, this was funny. She's doing the voice, and she's playing this whale, and she's banging on the wall, and she says, freedom is a burden, Bill Cosby, let me in. Were you guys okay with this joke? Speaking of rules of comedy, did you guys think this was a fine joke for Lady Dynamite to tackle?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was fine with it too.
Yeah.
I just know, like Judd Apatow, for example, I know like this isn't don't joke about Bill Cosby. It's like a rule
Really?
that isn't that funny?
Wow.
I heard he was interviewed on Mark Maron's podcast. And
I think a woman can joke. I think a woman can joke about Bill Cosby.
Right.
I think has a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't
of
think it was funny. Did I say no? I didn't think it was funny at all. But yeah, I really liked the way this was handled. It was nuanced. A show this smart is allowed to do that. Is what I think.
Yeah.
If Big Bang Theory is trying to make these kind of jokes.
Right. That's exactly it. Like that's how it gets. It just gets so nuanced on what is appropriate and what is not, because it has to be handled very well. It has, you can say anything as long as it's done the right way, because too often you see it done at an open mic, especially the wrong way.
Right.
Where it's just offensive for the sake of shock value, and that's the bottom of the barrel type comedy. So
Yeah.
So then we go into this virtual reality scene where they're looking at these condos. Do you guys have any idea what this was? I was
so
legitimately confused.
Yeah.
This was, because I thought when we were going into it, it was a cartoon. And so I was like, okay, we're going into one of those lamb scenes,
Right,
a
right.
jarring scene, a jarring moment. And so I'm following, and I'm like, okay, I'm prepared for this. Let's go. And then all of a sudden they throw me off, and they're in virtual reality glasses. And I was like, wait, it wasn't even real. It was virtual reality.
Yeah.
But
I know.
I'm glad it was.
I
too.
know, it
wasn't,
was
yeah.
good. It was good in that sense. But yeah, it was definitely different, and it caught me off guard like a couple times, like twice. So
I still don't understand why, though. I don't.
I know,
why
I
it's
wonder
they
so
if
do
it was just because
crazy.
they were talking about money and time and all that stuff. I don't know if it was something to show like, let's put on the glasses, you know.
Or
we
that
have
she's
money
such a
and-
like high-end real estate agent
Maybe.
that that's the way that they show houses in her market. I
That could be
guess
something. Yeah.
maybe I don't. Yeah,
It's this world
still not
she's in.
sure.
I don't know. It was weird though. It was funny. Like it made me laugh, but I was kind of
Yeah.
like, what? Anyway, so this is kind of the B stories. She's real estate like shopping, and this is kind of tracking the source. Again, when we go into the past version of Maria, it seems like we're learning the source of all of her demons. And it's this real estate issue where Susan is really pushing her to get a house.
And Susan is just getting me. I wonder if Susan's just going to get more awful by the
know.
episode.
Yeah.
Pretty
'cause
terrible.
She went from being just like slightly aggressive in the first two to like now she's just she's really being scary.
Yeah, very mean. But anyway, she finally gets to this house, and Susan is so offended because Susan's like, you could have lived with me. Why did you get this house? Maria's like, well, you told me to get this house.
Right.
And we're starting to see the source of Maria's, ultimately this episode's about people pleasing, right? It's about trying to be someone else for someone else. And so we kind of see the source of it, and we learn, why Maria is the way she is. So then we're back, and Maria's actually doing stand-up in the character. Now her name is Diane Winterbottom Monte, Connecticut. Just thought they throw the word Connecticut in her name. And her stand-up is just terrible. But they love it. They love it in the audience because it's this crowd that loves this humor.
I thought that the crowd was watching Maria Bamford, like they knew who she was.
You thought
and,
so.
I thought Jack was laughing at this character and he thought the character was hilarious, but I thought the crowd got
They were
what she was
in.
doing. Yeah, they were watching like a regular Maria Bamford set. That was just my take on it. I don't know if that's what they were doing.
I like your take more. I think it's a smarter take.
That's true.
I mean, you're the smartest person on the planet. So this is the...
Somebody said it. Not true. I feel really awful about mixing up Baron and Byron's names earlier.
You know what? This
was
is a live
horrible.
show, guys. We have an hour. Just forgive us.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I love your take. So everyone's watching Maria Bamford. She's actually doing the character of Diane. They're loving it. But Brandon Routh's character is Jack Tripper is only responding to the comedy of just the worst version of who she is. And then Patton Oswalt shows back up. We have this whole joke about the C word. Mm-hmm. I thought this was hilarious. Did you guys like this?
Yes.
This was probably the funniest joke to me in the episode.
I was caught off guard for a second, and then I was like, what? And then the next scene I thought was really funny because she was like, everybody brings up Patton,
I know.
when we're getting intimate. And then she does a little joke about, what did she say? She was like, I can't stop thinking about Patton your bum with my tongue, And it's just like, that, I just died. So.
Oh my gosh, that was so funny. But then it's fun to watch this character of a non-comic. I think comedians love to explore the non-comic who just doesn't get humor at all. And he's like, just doesn't understand the idea that like, if you're close to someone, you can throw out an inappropriate word, but because you're doing that in the context, it's an in-joke. He just doesn't get the
Understanding irony is it's hard. In fairness to a person like a person in real life like Jack Tripper, understanding irony is difficult. It's hard to know when somebody is being ironic unless you know that person very well.
Right.
So, like I can understand both sides. On one hand, and it's frustrating as a comedian to be like, how do you not get when it's appropriate to say this and when it's not? But then on the other hand, it's like when you're not around people who are constantly being ironic in every single thing that they're saying,
Right.
it's hard to
And
pick up on.
it's a flip side where sometimes we get frustrated when people don't understand irony, but then normal people get frustrated when comics are completely inappropriate
Yeah.
in what should be normal
Right.
situations.
Right. Yeah. True.
So it's fun to have this explored. Anyway, this C word joke comes back a couple times in what I thought was just such a funny way. But when Maria goes down on him,
That's what shocked me. I was
know.
like, oh, they're showing her going
I know.
Right.
just her head dipping down. I was like, whoa,
I
I'm
know.
not used to seeing that on
I know,
TV.
especially, and it's a very courageous thing for her to do because it's her show.
Yeah.
And it becomes thematic. It comes back and we kind of understand why she's doing this. But then we see these photos. Did you guys catch
What
this?
the heck was that?
Yeah.
The first one of just like this Indian chief.
They were like paintings on the wall.
Yeah, it must have just been that's his
I
art.
didn't notice that. What was
Like
it?
when the music came on, she was going down. It's like it peered over to a painting, and then it went to another one. So they
The
were
first
like,
painting, and I guess it's his art, like it speaks to his character. It's this like Indian chief, I think, getting a blowjob from a Native American. And then we cut, and it's a bear getting a blowjob from the same Indian chief, simultaneously giving handjobs to two other people. I was like a little shocked by this.
Yeah.
But it was funny. I mean, if it's funny, I love it.
but did it make
that.
sense?
It was like
Or
right
was that
I
just
think
like
it was just this joke. I think it was just a heightening of a joke. But to me, it was just like, this is his place. This is his art. Like, do you guys watch Parks and Recreation at all?
Yeah.
It's like the really obtuse, kind of gross portrayals of Pawnee history. You know what I mean? Just like a lack of
I see.
subtlety. That's
I
how
see.
that's what it was to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're back in the office and we talk about the show Lock Up Abroad, which I love this joke.
awesome.
So
Awesome
funny.
title.
Such a funny title. And it's just this meditation on these horrifically misogynistic shows. We're back to this theme. And Maria's like, I don't know if I want to be on a show where I'm a host where we're locking up women, forcing them to confront the patriarchs in their lives. But he's really pushing her to do it. So he's like, okay, I'm going to be a people pleaser. I'll just do it. We also learn about Bruce's living situation. He's living in this like kind of gay fraternity house. Can you guys help me out here? What was this?
I mean, I guess because he's not, his wife is with somebody else, and so he's, right, like, had to find a new place to live, and so he's living in the dorms and being hazed by these frat boys.
I just kind of have a
Meta-beta.
feeling meta beta. That's what it was.
Yeah,
What
meta-beta.
I think what they're saying is he's not alpha, he's beta, and it's this
Yeah.
meta joke. Such a smart, quadruply layered joke here.
Yes.
I just think Bruce is gonna get slowly pushed out of the closet all season, but
Really? Okay.
I think so.
But flash back to that scene where they're at the party and Joanna Cassidy, you know who that actress is, she was making out with that guy on the couch
Yeah.
and he's sitting there and Maria goes up to him and he's like, says he's like channeling what the guy was wearing because he was wearing, what was that about?
I think it was just like, I think he's believing that she still likes him because he notices she's always drawn to people who wear the same clothes. Really, I think someone's probably just staying over at her house and borrowing her husband's clothes. But I'm just, this whole Bruce development's really funny and fun to me. It might just be that he's such a soft guy that people are always taking advantage of him, but it kind of seems like this weird homoerotic thing. I don't know. We'll
Right.
see.
Yeah.
That's interesting. It didn't strike me that way,
Yeah.
but that could be. I'm
We'll have to
curious
see.
how.
It's a little Tobias thing I'm getting, and I feel like it's a character Mitchell Hurwitz really likes to explore. Anyway, we flash back to Duluth. This was so much fun. So sad, pathetic, and funny.
You know
Yes.
what? Also, like in Rachel Bloom's show,
Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, the boss who he comes out of the closet in the mid. It's
I
very
haven't
similar
watched
to that.
show
Oh,
yet.
okay.
I need to because I love comedy.
Spoiler.
I know comedy music's one of my favorite things. I can't believe I haven't watched that show yet, but I will. Anyway,
It's just a very in the same vein of the character.
The character?
of the rest of
Bruce.
yeah.
Awesome, noted. I'm really excited to watch. I'm sure I'll binge it like in one day, starting in the summer. But anyway, we flash back to Duluth, and this is so relatable. Just the unfunny prick who makes everyone laugh and just tortures comedy people. This was, you immediately saying this was very relatable to you. And poor Maria, she's at her worst, and people are like, come on, do comedy, monkey, like, clap for us. It's just like, just because you're a comedian doesn't mean you can just do it on the spot. It's an act, it's an art.
Right.
It's a written act, but then also too, like, I mean, there are definitely comedians that are just like, what's going on, guys? Like, wow, I'm wacky.
Right.
But like, a large majority of comedians aren't like that.
Right.
They're like, I'm very like low energy, and when I start a new job, I just act like a quiet, normal person. So
Right.
like all the time, people are like, you're a comedian? Oh, I would never have guessed that you're a comedian. I'm like, I'm okay, all
know.
right. Like, it doesn't. I don't have to. Take a shit on the floor to show you that I'm like
To be funny. Right.
Yeah, this was really smart, and we see her getting sadder and sadder because her comedy's not working. I did get flashbacks to the 30 Rock episode where man, Kenneth the Page is making everyone laugh, and Tracy Morgan is so jealous. Tracy Jordan is so jealous. Anyway, Maria's just at her worst, and her mom comes in and says, don't look to other people for approval. Get it from yourself. And she says, Mom, that's literally what a stand-up is. I've spent my whole life seeking approval from others. Can you guys relate to this? I mean, we're kind of all aspiring performers, right? Can you guys relate to this of you don't want to seek approval from other people, but your success is literally mitigated on trying to get approval from other people?
Isn't that like a double-edged sword or something?
Yeah, completely, right?
Yeah. Yes, for sure. And it's interesting, you know, that her mother comes in and says that, and she's just like, I need approval, and that's how I get my audience and everything. And she's just like getting more down on herself and stuff. But yeah, I mean, you can totally see it, I think, as a theme.
sad.
And it's a people pleaser theme of the whole show. So we definitely get that, you know, just tied in even more with the theme.
And it's a nice explanation of why so many performers and artists have these kind of dark internal demons, because their job, their success is completely correlated on what people think of them. So this is fun. I like these Duluth storylines are kind of serious in a way that I think really kind of balances the show.
Yeah.
Kind of makes me sad. I find myself actually getting sad when I watch. It might be the saturation.
I enjoy that.
I know.
I like it.
The saturation. No.
Yeah. That's true. But I enjoy it too, Tamra, for sure. Finally, go back into the present, and Maria's like, you know what? I'm going to handle this. I've got to talk to Jack Tripper about this stuff. And so she brings it up, and he's talking. This was my favorite line. I'm trying to figure out. I've got some notes here. Just give me guys a sec. Oh, yeah. So she's talking, and she goes, it's not important to get my needs met. It's important to get the needs met of other people, the person who I'm into. She's like, nobody's periscoping right now, which I love that joke. That's such a... I hate I think it's gross, but that's just me. If you guys periscope, it's awesome. Anyway.
She's like, we're all too old.
I know.
You're the only millennials.
Are you talking about the brunch they were all at?
Yeah.
Okay, we're there. Yeah.
And so he's talking about it, and he goes, yeah, like, he's like my best friend. Like, that guy's my cunt. It's like how he thinks he's supposed to use the word. Sorry, I just said the C word. I know. I don't know if I'm allowed to use it or not. Whatever. Then we flash back to her on this show. This is the epitome of her breaking her people-pleasing habits. Sees her on this show called Locked Up Abroad. What did you guys think of this scene of her on the show?
Do you want to?
Yeah, go ahead.
I know I'm jumping quick. It's her. There's a woman literally locked in a box, right?
Yes, and so she does the first intro of it, and then she just kind of stops. She turns around and she's just like, I don't know exactly what she says, but she's just like, I'm tired of doing the voice, and you know, she was tired of being Diane, and she was like, did not take to the Lock Up Abroad and everything. She like did it, but she was exhausted of doing it. So it's, you know, kind of interesting as, you know, we saw her character trying to people please so much, and then she's just like, I've reached my point.
Yeah.
So, and they're like, but do the Diane voice. You know?
Right. So finally we have this conversation that needed to happen. Maria's kind of learned she can't be on all the time. So she's trying to talk to him, and she's like, you know, it's important that we have a sense of humor. So his reaction to that is he lets out a 30-second fart. Do you guys like fart humor?
Scene.
I do.
I love it too.
Good, yeah.
This was so funny to me. This is a great scene because she laughs finally. She's like, okay, he finally gets it. He's like, no, what's so funny? She's like, well, you just farted for 30 seconds straight.
Being yourself.
He's like, no, I just had to let it out, and this was just something that was inside of me. Yeah. So this is her realization. This is her breaking point. And she goes, I need someone who giggles at my fluff trumpets.
Yes, I love fluff trumpets.
And you deserve someone who takes your fluff trumpets very seriously. And that's, of course, the motto of this show. So he's about to leave, and we think she's learned her lesson, but she goes back into Diane one more time.
Yep.
And so I love, the show never wraps it up in a clean bow. We always see, Maria's never going to totally learn. The anxiety-ridden, kind of broken Maria that we see is always going to be there a little bit. So.
That's true. I like that about her, that she's always, like, that she stays broken in a sense. Like, she learns a little bit, but she stays broken, because a lot of the shows and sitcoms that we see, it's like they tie a bow on it, they have a theme, everybody learns from their mistakes, and then, you know, we move on to the next thing. But with Maria, she's like, hi, I realize that I'm tired and I can't please everyone, but maybe I'll still do it a little bit, or I can't completely break it. You know, I think that's the human part and the relatable part that we get with Maria as well.
Definitely.
Well said.
Any other thought? We gotta move quick. But any other thoughts on this episode before we wrap?
I liked seeing Jackie Cation and the scene with like all the comedians at her party. I like the little cameos.
Yeah, always.
Enjoying the cameos
So much. And I gotta give props to Brandon Routh again. I want to see more of him. He's a subtle comic actor.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do really, really quick. I know it's hard to predict for this show, but we can do some really, really quick predictions.
Your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
So as I mentioned, I think we're gonna maybe see this potential kind of homoerotic side of Bruce Van Backrich, but I don't know. That's one thing I'm thinking.
I dig that prediction. I hope that happens.
Yeah, definitely. Any thoughts from you guys?
I don't know if I have a prediction. I don't have a prediction.
Oh, I think I want to predict more with Susan. I think we might see a breaking point
I hope.
coming. I do too.
She's terrible.
Yes, she's getting to that intolerable state. So
Yeah.
I'm ready to see that.
Yeah, I see Maria getting tired of some of these bad friends she has around, and
Yeah.
I can't wait to see Maria stand up for herself and be her true self, and I hope to see more of that.
Absolutely. All right, well, I think that's... Oh, we just had to do the final jokes from this episode. Any jokes that you guys liked from episode 2?
I liked one of
go
the
quick.
lines. One of the lines. You don't want to be the least murdery house in the most murdery street.
Yeah,
That was great.
That's a good one.
I think, oh man, Kelsey's got a physical... I'm very impressed by your
Oh,
bit.
Maria,
Is this
here-
relatable?
I brought your tampons. You forgot your tampons. What's your tampons?
Any jokes from episode 2 or episode 4 for you two?
I didn't write it down, but what was the very last thing with when she and Jack part ways and she's like, do you want to just go, basically like, do you want to just go on, give each other head one more time? But what about it?
It was like
Do you
oral... Tell us in the comments, guys.
Yeah.
Or I guess we could just go. It's on
that last
Netflix.
line. That last line was. I remember it was funny, but I didn't write it down.
All right, well, we're going over, guys. We got to wrap. But thank you so much for tuning in again, guys. We're having a blast on this panel. Again, this is episodes 3 and 4. Tune in at 7 p.m. PST next week for episodes 5 and 6. If anyone's watching with us, please comment below. Let us know what you think. Tell us what you agree with, what you don't agree with. 5 stars on iTunes, all that. We love doing this with you. Speaking of doing it with us, oh, I just heard it. Let's just, who knows what's going to happen next episode. Anyway, you guys can follow me on Twitter if you want to engage in conversation about this show. So much to talk about. You guys can find me on Twitter at Jeffrey C. Graham. That's my name, Jeffrey C. Graham.
Find me on Twitter at Brown Tamra.
Find me at Kelsey Hightower.
Find me at Lisa Mason Lee.
All right, I think that's it. Thanks again, guys, so much for tuning in. We'll see you in 7 days.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.